your hands together, sing the song if you know it. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my hope. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my hope. Come on, go! In you I find my peace. In you I find my strength. In you I live and move and I breathe. Let everything say you be found by my faith in you. Lift up holy hands and sing.
Let the praises ring.
Oh Lord, my God, to you I give my hands. Oh Lord, my God, to you I give my feet. Oh Lord, my God, to you I give my everything. Oh Lord, my God, to you I give my life. In you I find my peace. In you I find my strength. I live and move and breathe. In you I live and move and I breathe.
Let everything say you be founded by my faith in you. And lift up holy hands and sing. Let the praises ring.
Oh Lord, come on. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Oh yeah. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my hope. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Oh Lord, my God, in you I put my hope. In you I find my peace. In you I find my strength. In you I live and move and I breathe.
Let everything say you be founded by my faith in you. Lift up holy hands and sing. Let the praises ring. Let the praises ring. Let the praises ring.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's awesome to see your beautiful faces as we worship God this morning. So glad that you're here. Again, if you know these songs, let's sing them out. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the refuge for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. down. Do you believe that? Come on. And you're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. Sing that out, yeah.
You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down.
You are good. He's good to us. When the night is holding on to me, God is holding on. Say that again. When the night is holding on to me, God is holding.
Well, good morning, everybody. You can all have a seat for a moment. And you guys all look great out there today. Thank you. I must have missed the memo, though. I didn't realize it was Ugly Sweater Sunday. That's for you, Brant. Good morning, everybody. My name's Trevor. I'm an elder here at Hope, and I get to be your host here this morning. Online people, welcome. This is an exciting day for me today because today is the first time in 2 years of being the host that I've been looking at the correct camera. And they still invite me back, which just proves our need for volunteers here at home. I'm just kidding. So if you're watching us online this morning, welcome. So glad that you're here today. And just drop us a note in the chat. Let us know where you're from. I'm actually curious today. I want to know how far we're reaching across the country, maybe even across the world. Where are we at today? So let us know in the chat. If you're joining us here in person, welcome. And if this is one of your first few Sundays here, really glad that you decided to join us. On your way out the door, make sure you hit Guest Central where you can get a free gift. And if you're feeling brave, say hello to somebody. And then if you are also feeling brave, there should be a QR code behind my head somewhere. Scan that and let us know that you're here and kind of who you are. That's the best way for us to know who you are. And actually, even if you're a regular attender, if you have a change of address, something like that, scan that code, let us know. If you want to volunteer for things, let us know there. If you need prayer, there's a great spot to get prayer as well. Speaking of prayer, you guys know that a prayer team comes up here every Sunday after church and prays with you. But did you know that they actually meet here on Monday nights at 6:30? And if you need prayer, or if you want to pray for other people, or if you're like 99.9% of us and need prayer and want to pray for other people, then that's a great place to go. Mondays at 6:30, you'll find that they're pretty cool, normal. As soon as I said normal, that didn't sound right. If you guys know Roger, that's not true. He's pretty cool, and he's awesome, and he's fun. We just can't describe him as normal, and he's gonna make you feel like family if it's the first time you've ever been there. So go check him out. We are beginning Holidays of Hope. Technically next week is when it really starts to kick off, and we lead up all the way up into our big hurrah, which everybody gets really excited about on Christmas Eve. It's called Celebrate with Family. I just want you to be aware that that's coming 2 days before Christmas. Get it on your calendars now. It's the event that you don't want to miss. We actually already sort of started with the holidays with Operation Christmas Child. If you guys remember, we were collecting boxes to give to children all throughout the world who wouldn't be able to celebrate Christmas or wouldn't be able to receive a gift on Christmas without these boxes. And so we at Hope, we had a goal of 100 boxes. We did not hit that goal. We surpassed it. So 119 boxes went out. So awesome to see the generosity. 119. So awesome to see the generosity, and just know that you guys were the light, or going to be the light in some kids' lives when they receive gifts on Christmas. It's so awesome. Next Sunday is Flannel Sunday. So you want to wear your flannel clothing. If you're bringing a guest next Sunday, you might want to let them know what's happening before they walk in here into a sea of flannel. And so you have a week to do some shopping if you hang out at the country club like me and don't have any flannel. And if you can't get that done within a week, just talk to Pastor Tom. He's got more flannel in his wardrobe than most lumberjacks do combined. So he'll be able to help you out. Let's stand back up. Let's let this amazing praise band continue to rock. You know how you give it back to them? Just give them every ounce of energy that you have, and they're going to give it back to you. Let's do it.
How is your energy this morning, you guys? No, right? One person did better than the whole crowd. We're gonna sing this song. It's called Love, and we do need your help and your energy. And this is how we do it. We take our two hands and we go like this, and we go like this. Everybody, come on.
I give my praise to you. I above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. His name is above. Come on, let's sing that. Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those. As we sing holy, holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Come on, church, let's sing this. I will build. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will
first acknowledge his holiness. Acknowledge his goodness. Acknowledge his faithfulness. Acknowledge his strength and his sovereignty. God, we sing about your goodness today. We sang words that you're for us. And we could build our life on you. We could kind of build our foundation on you. And I pray that you would give us an ever-growing sense of faith and trust every single day. It's not easy. There's so many things that come at us, so many things that discourage us, so many things out of our control. But Lord, in this week especially, in this Thanksgiving week, help us to acknowledge you first and foremost and say thank you, God. Whatever it is, we've been talking about this all teaching series long. You are good and you are for us. You're not against us. And that you work all situations for the good of your glory and your kingdom and your agenda. So God, we give you the thanks and praise now. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, you can have a seat. Thank you so much for singing with us this morning. Yep, amen. And as we begin our lesson, we want to direct your attention to the screen.
So my name is Sarah. I live in Colchester, Connecticut. I am 27 years old. I live there with my family and my large Bernese Mountain Dog, Luna. I've been coming to Hope Church now for almost 3 years, and I love it. I currently work as a registered behavior technician, so I work in a clinic working one-on-one with kids with autism, and it is a huge passion of mine, and I love it so much. So I grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic, so going to church every Sunday, sitting in the front row. I actually was an altar server for some time. And then kind of toward my teen years in college, I sort of found myself drifting away from God a little bit and getting distracted with, day-to-day things in college and life. But it really wasn't until my younger brother had some health issues, and he's fine now, that I really started to kind of reconnect with God. And I had a friend who took me to a Christian church in Middletown. And, the second I walked in there was a band. It was so lively. Everybody was so warm and comforting. And I kind of just fell in love with it and was able to just really reconnect to God and find my faith again, but as an adult, which I think is so important because it was something that I got to choose, and the way that I wanted to worship and the way that I wanted to have my faith was good. About 2 years ago in December, I started kind of feeling flu-like symptoms, chills at night, fevers, and of course, this was around the time that COVID was coming out, so I was constantly getting tested for COVID, in and out of doctor's offices, and they just kept telling me, this is just a virus. It's just some silly virus. Maybe it's a different strain of COVID, but you're gonna be fine. And then a month later, the symptoms still were not going away. So I actually just went into a walk-in clinic in downtown Colchester and just kind of filled her in on everything that's been happening. And so she decided to do some blood work. And the next day she called me and pretty much informed me that I needed to stop working because I was still at the time going to work, just taking a lot of sick days. And she said I had to stop working and I had to see a hematologist immediately because my white blood cell count was very, very low. So it would be dangerous to be around children or other people if I was to get sick. So my dad called a hematologist up at Bacchus Hospital, and they were able to get me in, and they continued to do blood work. And even when we went to the hematologist, they were still saying in the initial visit that it's got to be some sort of virus. They had different doctors come in, different specialists to try to figure it out. So she did blood work, and she goes, okay, I'll just call you back in a few days and I'll let you know. It also could be an autoimmune disease, but don't worry. So a few days go by, and I remember it so vividly because I was actually relaxing on the couch. My boyfriend wasn't here, my parents were out, and I got a phone call from the hematologist. And I could just tell in the tone of her voice that something was off. And she told me on the phone that I had to pack my bags. I would be staying overnight at Bacchus. So, obviously how anyone would feel, my heart just stopped because I can't even imagine why do I need to stay at a hospital? I've never stayed overnight at a hospital before. So, I start crying on the phone. She's trying to calm me down, and I'm asking her, okay, what is it? What did you find? What'd you find? And, she's like, I really don't want to tell you this news over the phone. It should be something that, your family should come in. And obviously when I heard those words, then I'm even more anxious and, this has got to be something big. So that's when she told me that they had found what appeared to be cancer. This is definitely when scarcity came in because, to be real, my first word was, I'm gonna die. That is just what went through my head, and it was, why, God, did you let this happen to me? Because I know so many people have those moments in their life where it feels like it's not your life. You feel like you're in a movie and this shouldn't have happened to you. And that was, that exact moment. And I remember I stepped outside and I was so angry with God. And I always thought I had a strong faith. I still do. But in that moment, it's a, why, God, did you let this happen to me? And I'm gonna die. It was, and that's full transparency. And I struggled. I called my mom, and everybody came home, and it was very difficult to kind of wrap our heads around that. And my parents have a strong faith, but I think for them too, it was a, how can this happen to us kind of situation. So from there, that very same day, we all went back to Bacchus Hospital, and she sat us down and she informed us that it was not only cancer, but a very rare form of cancer. That's called BPDCN. I do not know how to say it. We've always just called it that. And to be honest, to this day, I've never Googled it because I don't want to Google statistics or, I hear what I need to hear from the doctors and that's it. But so they told us it was BPDCN, and she said that Bacchus and Smilo have had no patients with BPDCN, so they really didn't have much experience. So that was definitely another blow to our family because, everyone's in here, everyone's crying, everyone's a mess. And then to hear a doctor say, well, we don't have experience with this, so we're gonna try to find someone who does. So, definitely in that moment too, it was, another why, God, or why is this added on? I already have to deal with this, and now why do you have to add this additional layer? So again, going back to that whole scarcity thing, I think kind of after that moment is where things shifted. Things didn't get better, but they shifted because we left the doctor's office and they were going to do their own research, but Yale was prepared that if we couldn't find another place, that they had a trial drug that they were going to run. But my dad went online, and he's great. He's into pharmaceuticals. He went online, he Googled a whole bunch on BPDCN and found this amazing doctor in Dana-Farber up in Boston. And, he didn't call, he just shot him an email. And it was a very brief email, just pretty much a plea for help, whatever you can do to help my daughter. We don't know where to go next. And that I really feel was, a gift from God, because that doctor emailed us back that day, and within days we were up at his office. And it was a weird moment because I think I actually felt a huge, wave of anxiety kind of go away, because I felt as if, okay, this is God stepping in now. He's saying, that whole scarcity mindset of why did you do this to me? He didn't do this to me, but he's not leaving my side. He's guiding me through. So once we got in contact with the doctor in Dana-Farber, which we ended up seeing within days, he had a plan. He had it all written out on paper. This is what's going to happen to you. This is the different medications we're going to give you. Obviously, I knew going into it that chemotherapy was going to be something that they would have to use, and was definitely a huge fear of mine. But the way that the doctors were, and my family and my boyfriend and all my friends were so supportive, that I knew that, I was going to get through this. So the steps that would kind of go forward with this was I would have to do 2 months of a trial drug that was out specifically for BPDCN. And that was a lot less harmful than chemo, which was great. And I was able to be with my parents, which was also great, because during this time it was COVID, so nobody was allowed in the hospital. So during this time they let me do outpatient. Then after I did 2 trials of that, we had a meeting with the main doctor. And that was tough because he informed us that the trial drug had not worked like he wanted. And that was definitely another why God moment, because it seemed as if we had our fix. We had our easy ending. Let's just do this drug and then we move on and all is great. So that was hard, and that's when he told us that they would have to do a much more intense form of chemotherapy. So I would lose my hair, a lot more side effects, and this eventually would take me into transplant. So transplant is where somebody else donates their stem cells to you, and it's life-changing. So definitely hearing that part was very tricky for me. One, because I didn't want to go through chemotherapy, and all you see is the movies and the TV shows and people getting violently ill and losing their hair. And then having to go through transplant and having, the whole point of the intense chemotherapy is to bring your body down to a 0. So thinking back on it now, it's like bringing you close to death. They want you at your lowest. And then that's where they gave you the transplant, which is just through an IV, which is crazy. And it just revamps your body and saves your body. So the chemo was tough. That was a couple months. Some were inpatient and some were outpatient. And the inpatient ones were definitely difficult, especially with COVID. So I couldn't have any family up there. And that was very hard. Very, very hard. I had great nurses, great doctors. But I think during those moments that I was alone, and it might sound crazy, but I didn't feel alone at all. I think that being able to go through it on my own without other people or distractions, I was able to become closer to God and really lean on Him during this whole process. I mean, I brought my Bible, I was praying every morning and listening to worship music was key. I always had that on repeat. The nurses sometimes would come in and like dance with me, or they would pray, and it was very nice, and helped me get through some really, really dark times. And it was definitely an internal battle to feel so bad and understand that something good will come out of it. And during this time, I did not have the mindset that having cancer was going to be something good that was coming to my life. I still was very woe is me, and why is this happening to me? And you know, at the time being 25 years old and thought I was healthy, then why do I have to go through this? But I think through the experience of being by myself humbled me and gave me time to appreciate life. And it sounds cliche, but you know, really appreciate what I have. And I realized I took a lot for granted, my health and just being around family and stuff. So that was that. I definitely think there was a lot of those moments that reminded me that God was there and that I wasn't alone. And when they do the transplant, the hospitals make it a big deal, because for some people who have had a transplant, they call it your birthday, because it's your new life. And they had a pastor that was in the church, and he was nice, and he would always come in every couple of days and sit and talk with me. So I had asked, the pastor to come in so he could bless the transplant process. And then my parents had a friend who's a priest, so we had him zoomed in, and my dad was in the elevator, and he starts talking to this guy and finds out that he's a pastor too. And so, they're talking and talking, and my dad's filling him in on what's happening. He goes, "Do you mind if I just come and be with your daughter?" He's like, I don't need to touch her. I just want to stand and like put hands and just pray. And so we had, I think between all that, we had 2 pastors and a priest and nurses and doctors, and it was so powerful of an experience. And not to neglect the person that donated their stem cells to me. I sadly have not met them, and that's somebody's journey that it's an option if they want to meet who they donated to. But for me, it's just like I'm forever indebted to this person who saved my life. And I wish people could realize that donating stem cells is such a small thing to do, but it saved my life. If that person hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have been here today. I think having people who are strong in their faith, like my parents and my friends and people I've met at Hope Church, have helped increase my faith a lot, because in the beginning, I definitely doubted and questioned God. And then I think just through prayer and through meeting other people's stories, that's why even just being able to share mine is so important, because hearing from other people and their journeys and what they've been through inspires me to continue to keep going and kind of get out of my head with focusing on myself or woe is me, and trying to find ways that I can apply what I've learned. And it's definitely given me more of a drive to figure out what I want to do in life. And getting back to working with my kiddos has been huge for me too. And I see what they struggle with every single day. And for me, a huge thing is that I kept remembering that this is just a chapter in my book, and it's not, this doesn't define my life. It's just going to be a part of it. And it's definitely made me a stronger person, and to lean more on God. There definitely was a lot of beauties and a lot of truly remarkable people that I've met along the journey. And Dana Farber has been incredible in letting me share my story, and through that and through my silly TikToks that I do, I've met some really, really amazing people. And just seeing how they're so happy and they are able to turn something so devastating around just inspires you and makes you look at your own story and say, hey, there's some good that can come out of this. The uncertainty is definitely the hardest part, and I think for me and for a lot of people, I thought, okay, get the transplant, you finish your chemotherapy, you're cancer-free, you can move on with your life. But I think when you're going through cancer or any sort of challenge in your life, your body is in fight mode. So you just get through it. And even the word warrior, I've used it before, but I've kind of learned to not like it so much, because I think that if anybody was in my shoes or anybody's shoes, they would fight and they would get through it. But definitely after transplant probably proved to be the hardest. I had to totally relearn how to walk, how to run again. It affects your joints, your muscles, your organs, your eyes. I was having so much trouble seeing. I was having trouble moving my joints, having trouble eating, and humbling to almost have to become a child again and have your parents take care of you. And I'm fortunate that I have amazing parents and an amazing boyfriend and friends who really stepped up and helped me get through it. But I almost think that the recovery was worse, because you're done, but things are still happening, and for doctors, it's okay, she's great, let's get her going. But for me, my whole life has been turned upside down, and I can't go to work, I can't work out, I can't hike, I can't hang out with my friends. So that was very difficult and a slow process. And even going through, chemotherapy before, and you lose your hair, and for a lot of people that's very sensitive. And not even, for me, it wasn't an appearance thing, it was more so of a people look at me and they know that I'm sick thing. So that was very difficult for a while, and especially being a female, always having to wear a beanie, and then, I'm not good at makeup, so trying to figure out how to draw on eyebrows or whatever you have to do to make yourself not look sick. And then, I had a few months after transplant that things seemed great. I could get back to normal. I was able to go back to work part-time. And then about, 6 months ago, I developed a small bump. I had an original tumor spot on my hip, but this was a small bump that had developed, and I emailed my doctors, because we have great communication. I just said, hey, something popped up. I don't have any other symptoms. And at first they're thinking, okay, that's fine. We'll monitor it and we'll check your blood work. And the blood work was fine, but the bump kept getting a little bit bigger and then started to turn like a purplish color. So they had me go back up to Dana-Farber. They did a biopsy, and they said, okay, we'll let you know in a few weeks. And then it wasn't a few weeks. It was probably 2 or 3 days. I got a phone call, and it was my original doctor, so I knew that something was going on, and he said that they had found cancer cells in that lump. And that was just a flashback of the first moment, and very ugly, very me throwing my phone across the room screaming, and my parents running in, and they don't know, they're crying, and you go through this battle, and then you're like, then another, why God? Okay, so I went through all of this, and now it came back. And so that was very, very hard, but luckily it did not spread to my blood, so they were able to just do a couple rounds of radiation, and now they just monitor. But with this type of cancer, it's not being cancer-free, it's kind of just being in remission and being watched, which has definitely been a struggle too, because you feel like that story can't end. But I think now it's just shifting my mindset to just, okay, well, it's gonna be a part of it, but it doesn't, like I said, doesn't have to be your whole chapter, and just trusting that no matter what pops up or what next step is, that God is there and I'm not alone through it. I think a lot through this journey has opened my eyes to pray more with people. I've definitely been someone that prays in private and not into walking around and putting hands on people and having people pray over me. But through this journey, a lot of people have done that, and complete strangers have come up to me and asked if they could pray for me, and that it just means the world. And Cheryl just came up to me one day at church and just said, that she felt like God had put something on her heart to come and talk to me. And just, I think it's definitely taught me to be braver in that aspect, and it's okay to go up to people and ask them if they're okay and pray for them, because people aren't going to always be open to coming forward with how they're feeling. So I never would have thought that I would be the person on the other side telling people, you know, you're gonna get through this, or I went through all of this. And I think a huge thing for me is just taking it day by day, to not try to think about the what ifs or the future, which is very difficult, but just taking it day by day and reminding yourself that you got this, and reminding myself that God didn't do this to me, but he's never going to leave my side during this whole thing. And I think it's definitely given me more compassion for others. And you know, you don't need to be going through cancer or something big and traumatic to have those why God moments. And I think that we all just need to be connected that way and help each other, no matter how big or small we think a problem is, because something so small for somebody could encompass their whole world.
So if next week is Bring Your Flannel Sunday, today should have been Bring Your Tissue Sunday. Listen, Sarah already preached today, so I am just up here to kind of put a bow on things and wrap up our series. And I just want to say thank you to Sarah. I don't know where you are, but truly grateful for you sharing your story. If we can just take a moment and thank her. And I know, I interviewed you, Sarah, but even listening today, I still was getting emotional. So I think what I love about Sarah, and from the moment that I first met her, is she just has, she's one of the most positive people you will ever meet. And yet she's very real and raw and honest, and you heard that in her story. And I think that's part of why, as we're wrapping up our series on abundance, that I really wanted to use Sarah's story, because, sometimes I think we hear these sort of before and after stories of someone who had, they went through this difficult thing and then it was magically all better, right? And Sarah alludes to kind of a couple times in her story where she wished she just had the simple, easy answer, the kind of simple fix. And, but what I hear in Sarah's story is that it wasn't all perfect, and it isn't, right? She still lives with this layer of uncertainty. And yet, within her story, you saw all these moments where she chose, even in that initial moment of human just emotion and feeling of scarcity, she was able to say, okay, God, and to do, what Tom showed, we stand and just hold our hands open and say, God, what are you going to do with this story? And all these little moments of abundance that really were throughout her story, whether it was two pastors and a priest in the hospital room with her, or again, her opportunity to share her story with other people and encourage people. And I think what I love about Sarah is that she had those fears, she had those frustrations, but she didn't let them write the rest of her story. And she believed that she still believes that God somehow can write a beautiful story. Maybe you feel that way today. Maybe you could relate a little bit. Maybe you feel like you have a story that doesn't necessarily make sense. Sarah mentioned that sometimes we feel like we're a character in a movie and we're like, how is this my life? How is this happening? Why am I here again? And I think her story is a challenge to me personally to just hold my hands open and say, okay, God, what's next? What are you going to do? What are the things that you may do through this that I may not be able to see? And I love that if you look at the Bible, there's so many times where God takes stories that just don't make sense, and he takes people that just don't make sense to even be a hero in a story, and he turns their life into something beautiful. And in fact, did you know that sometimes God actually renames people in the middle of their story? Maybe you find this, I think it's interesting, the story of Abram and Sarai, and God, when God turns Abraham into a father of many nations, he says, I'm changing your name from Abram to Abraham, which I believe is father of many. And again, Sarai's name is changed to Sarah, which I don't know if you knew, but I think princess, noblewoman is what your name means, so that's... And it's significant because it kind of marks what God is doing. In the New Testament, you see this too. God calls his disciple Simon. He says, I'm going to call you Peter or Cephas, and that means rock. And what God does sometimes when he names someone in the middle of their story, I think it's interesting that a lot of times he renames them before the thing has happened, before we get to see. A lot of times someone gets a nickname because it's like, oh, well, we're going to call you this because you tripped once and now forevermore you're going to be called Shoelace Boy. I don't know. That was not my finest moment on the spot. But you know what I mean? We get a nickname because of something we've done. Or you have this person who does something heroic and then they get this name that's a strong, heroic name. And I think it's interesting that God calls Abram father of this nations before he is. And he calls Peter rock when Peter is still, to be honest, scared and before, Peter's the one that ends up abandoning God and Jesus and saying he's going to denies his name, denies he knows God, and yet God knows, God sees, and he calls him this new name. And I think there's something really powerful about that. In fact, there's a verse that tells us, I believe it's in Revelation, but it talks about how God will give us a new name. And I don't know why, but for some reason there was a time in my life where that really was significant to me, and I'm like, I wonder what God would name me, like if I got a name. And I was praying and I was reading, and one day I felt like God gave me this name, and it's a good name. Wait for it. Myrtle. Myrtle, the name, which I think it was like the most popular. It hit its peak in like 1895, and there's a reason for that. It's no longer really used very much. I think out of 1 million babies that are born, I read today that maybe 11 children are called Myrtle, and God bless those children. But you know what, actually? When I first felt like God was saying Myrtle, I was like, you could do better than that. Come on, can you give me I could be Deborah, you could give me something whimsical, maybe like iconic, like Cher even. I'll just take, nope, I got Myrtle. But I ended up reading in the Bible. I was like, okay, God, you better have a reason for this because otherwise, we're not going to have a good conversation now. So I looked it up, and myrtle, if you look it up in the Bible, there's a couple interesting passages that talk about the myrtle. Isaiah 55, 12 through 13 is one of those. It says this, "You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Instead of the thorn bush will grow the juniper, and instead of briars, the myrtle will grow. This will be for the Lord's renown, for an everlasting sign that will endure forever." And so I started to get this picture that maybe this myrtle was actually kind of a surprising sign of flourishing, that instead of the briars, instead of what looks like death or scarcity, God is doing something surprising. And Isaiah 41, 18 through 20 is kind of a similar passage. It says, "I will make rivers flow on barren heights and springs within the valleys. I will turn the desert into pools of water. The cedar and acacia, the myrtle and the olive, I will put those in the desert, and I will set junipers in the wasteland, the fir and the cypress together, so that people may see and know. So that people may see and know, may consider and understand that the hand of the Lord has done this, that the Holy One of Israel has created it." And so what struck me about these passages is that we've talked about this already. God is a God of abundance, and he is a God who can literally take from nothing and make the world and speak life into the emptiness, right? And this same God, I think one of the most beautiful subversive pictures of his power and creativity is that he can make something beautiful grow where we least expect it. And so when in Sarah's story you see this beautiful thing growing where it makes absolutely no sense, I believe that is a picture of God's goodness that surprises people. And I believe that Sarah's yes to God in the midst of that is this beautiful way of her holding her hands open and saying, "Okay, God, I want people to see you in my story, a surprising abundance, an unexpected abundance that points people to God." that reminds people of who you are. You know, we talk about worshiping God and singing to him, and yet there's this powerful, powerful worship that we can give God. Maybe, and I've said this before, but maybe actually one of the most powerful ways we can worship God is in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the unknown, because it's our saying to God, we don't have the answers, we're not trusting in answers, we're putting our trust in you, and we're believing that there's goodness even when I can't see it. Even when I don't see it, you're working, right? We keep singing that song, and I love it. And so this myrtle, God was reminding me this myrtle is a sign of unexpected abundance and beauty that maybe around us that maybe we don't even see. It's also unexpected abundance that causes other people to see who God is, right? It's a sign that will endure forever. It helps people to see and know and consider and understand that God has done this, right? And so I noticed, Sarah, you have some tattoos on you, and I'm sure you have stories behind a lot of those. And so one of the tattoos I have is actually the myrtle flower. And so I wanted to share a little bit of part of why I got that tattoo was in the middle of COVID, in the middle of kind of a difficult journey that my family and I had been on. And I got that as a reminder of who God is, and a reminder that he can grow things that are very very beautiful in places that we might never expect. And I have a couple pictures actually I want to show you really quick, just to give you kind of another brief image of what this could look like. So we have this first image, hopefully, that's beautiful, right? You've got all these flowers in a field, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But I want to look at this next picture now. All right, so now this is a flower, and it's maybe a little hard to see, but this flower is growing out of the crack in the sidewalk, okay? And have you ever just been walking, like maybe especially in the winter, and when it's like everything is dreary and the trees have lost their leaves, and you stumble upon something that's just like unexpected beauty, where you least expect it. And I'm going to tell you, I think that is the picture that God wants to produce. Maybe you feel like you're in this crack and dry place, that you're in a place where no beauty could possibly grow. And sometimes it is in those very places that God does this powerful reminder of who he is and what he's capable of, and that he shows up in our lives in powerful ways. And I want to look at one more image that might be similar. We had a series recently actually about the desert and meeting God in those desert places and kind of in this journey. And that desert is another place where just everything looks dry, and you wonder how anything could possibly survive, let alone thrive. And then you see this, and it's this reminder, God is good. He can grow fruit, he can grow flowers, he can grow beauty in places that we least expect. Just like in Sarah's story, it wasn't easy, it wasn't difficult. And she kept going through things over and over again, right? You may feel right now like you're in this place of uncertainty and you just don't know when that's going to end. And yet we can give that to God, and we can say, okay, God, I'm expecting, I'm trusting that you're going to show up for me and in this in ways I could not have asked or imagined. And it's an opportunity, I think, for us to just, as we go back through all these messages we've done in this series so far, allow ourselves to rest in the mindset of abundance. Okay, as we wrap this up, I just want to remind us again, this doesn't mean, when we have an abundance mindset, it doesn't mean that all of our circumstances will be fixed, right? It doesn't mean that that we will always have what we would expect or what we would want of abundance in our lives, but it's a reminder that God can produce abundance. He can give us that sense of abundance even in those places that feel scarce. God has designed you, just like he designed Sarah, with a story to share. And that's one thing I really want to leave you all with today, okay? When God gives us a story, when we choose abundance, it is not just an act of defiance. It's not just a good for ourselves, but it's a way that God expands his kingdom and grows his kingdom and produces flourishing, right? And so I want you to consider the fact that maybe God has given you a story right now that doesn't look like abundance, but God wants to use your story the way that he has used Sarah's. He wants to touch someone else's life through your story. He wants you to be confident to share the places that you've gone and to recognize even places that you wish maybe you hadn't gone, maybe things you have that are regrets. But God says, nope, that's part of your story, and I'm still going to use it. I can still use that to impact and to reach other people. And maybe you're going to be a person who shows up in someone's hospital room and prays with them. Or maybe you're going to be someone who contributes to someone else's story and shows up and is in abundance in their life, right? I want us to have eyes to look around and say, okay, it's not just about my story. There's all these stories all around me, and God wants us to be light and hope and truth to others, and to walk around and to be abundance to others. And as we leave today too, I would just encourage you, especially if this series has challenged you the way that it's challenged me. Maybe not everyone's a tattoo person, I get that. But I would challenge you as you leave today, ask God, what would be a sign for me? What would be a thing that can remind me that you're good, that you have abundance for me, even when I don't see it? You know, it doesn't have to be creative. Maybe you go out and just find a rock and write abundance on it. That works. Maybe for you, maybe you go on a hunt this week, you and your kids, or on your own, and you try to find things that look beautiful in a place where you wouldn't expect. Maybe you start to go on a hunt for abundance and find a picture that represents that for you. I don't know what that is, but I would challenge you to have a sign and to hold on to that and let that sign remind you that God is good even when we can't see it, and to continue to hold your hands open and to trust that the same God who made you and is writing your story has a beautiful plan for it. God, I thank you so much for Sarah and for her story. I just pray your blessing on her and her family, and ask even that you would continue to use the highs and lows in her story to impact others, that you continue to open up opportunities for her to speak and reach into other people's lives. And I pray for every person here, God, that they would recognize that you've given them a story and it's powerful, and that you would allow us to see your goodness and your beauty all around. Open our eyes, God, because sometimes it's hard for us to see. But we want to trust you, and we love you, even in the uncertainty, even in the mess. We know you're writing a good story. We thank you. Amen.
Well, thank you for being here. Every week when we come, we want to make sure that sometimes you might laugh, sometimes you might cry, you may be challenged. And again, God's moving in all of our hearts. I don't think when Carrie and I set out, when we talked about this series, that we would realize how challenging and how rich and deep it actually is for all of us. And so I know I've also been challenged by it, even in preparing. So we hope that you've been challenged by it too. Now, next week, we start our Christmas series. And the title of our Christmas series is Giving Up on Christmas. You may want to join us over the next several weeks to see what in the world that's all about. But hey, listen, let's not skip over this week. We have Thanksgiving this week, and we hope that you have a great time spending it with your friends and family. So this is Holidays at Hope, and thanks for joining us. Next week, wear your flannel. I don't care if it's flannel shirt or flannel pants. Just wear something flannel. Let's have some fun with that. That'll be cool. So another thing, one last thing I wanted to mention before I go, and I know we've gone over a couple minutes today, but it's something that I think we're really excited about, and I want to just kind of whet your appetite for. Over the years, our church has done an initiative around Christmas as a part of our Christmas of Hope, where we've talked about a Christmas offering, and those have ranged various projects that we've done. And sometimes it's for things that we're doing internal, but most often we're trying to look outside our walls and outside ourselves to see how we might be able to bless others. And this year, we are planning on doing that again, and I'm very, very excited. Beginning next week and all the way through the month of December, we are challenging Hope Church to raise $10,000 to help our partner, Bold Hope, over in Otavia, Dominican Republic, as they are building a new ministry facility there. And I'm very, very excited. Of course, a bunch of you from Hope just came back from a trip with Bold Hope a couple months ago, and we love what they're doing, and we think this is an amazing way that we can give back and really make a difference around the world this Christmas. So I want you to think about that. I want you to challenge yourself. In this season of abundance, you need to challenge yourself and say, okay, how can I open my hands and give generously to what God wants to do? And I'm going to challenge you, and our elders are challenging you throughout this month of December, and you can do this very easily. If you go to our website, cthope.online/give, there's a separate button there. If you click on that button to give to Hope, of course you have the general, and that's what we still need those gifts, but there's another button there that says Christmas offering or something like that, Christmas of Hope, that's how you give to that project. So just wanted to put that out in front of you. Like Trevor said, we're going to have people here to pray with you at the end of the service if you need that. But other than that, we are done today. Thank you so much for being here. We hope to see you next week. Have a happy Thanksgiving. God bless you guys.